What happens when the DA turns these uh, repeat offenders loose that's killing people and not thinking about the consequences? They don't even see jail time. They go in, they see the court, the court slaps them on the hand, go, okay, no biggie, you're done, turn them loose, and they go right back out and do it again. What is all that about? Well, I got news for you. This is what it's about. Our kids are getting killed. Our parents are getting killed. Our workers are getting killed. I mean, we need to get these DAs accounted for that's turning these repeat offenders loose and not doing their job. We need to get them off the bench and replace them. Everybody's replaceable, including the DAs that just on the bench making money and not doing their job. That's what we need to do. We need to rally around the courthouses, find out what DAs we got in your town, your cities, your states, and hold them accountable because this is just plain not right. What you're fixing to hear here in a short few minutes is going to make you just cringe. And if it don't, I don't know what to say because I tell you what, it's just pitiful. It's sad. It's crazy. It's insane. It ain't right. It ain't fair. It ain't even American in my book. So we're fixing to hear uh, what these law officers are fixing to say. It's just we need to get together on this, guys. If we're American, we need to get this
concern that we
together.
have as law enforcement officers. Behind me are leaders of fraternal order police unions across the country in major cities. And we see a trend happening across the country where prosecutors are not prosecuting crimes. We're arresting criminals, taking them off the streets, only to have them released in order to continue to offend and commit murders. So we gave a number of examples to the president of the problem that we see, and it solicited assistance from the Department of Justice to recognize that there's a number of gun laws that are out there, and we would very much appreciate the administration stepping in and stepping up the attack, addressing these gun issues, and let's take some of these violent criminals across the streets. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to let some of the presidents of these cities say a few words about the issues specific to their cities. My name is Patrick Yoes, president of National Fraternal Order Police. Thank you. Yoes, Y-O-E-S. Yeah. Joe.
My name is Joe Gamaldi, Gamaldi. I'm the National Vice President of Fraternal Order Police, and I'm also the President of the Houston Police Officers Union. What we were discussing with the President today is that we're seeing a disturbing trend across this country. While we're seeing violent crime go down, in our big cities, we're actually seeing it flat or trending upwards. And most people will ask us, well, why is that? Well, we're here to tell you why. It's because we have activist DAs in cities like Houston, Dallas, Philadelphia, Chicago, Baltimore, who are letting these dirtbags out, who are repeat violent offenders, who are doing gun crimes. They're letting them out with sweetheart deals. They're getting back out on the streets, and they're victimizing the hardworking men and women of our community. The people who follow the laws, the people who are just trying to get ahead, and yet we have the same people doing the same things over and over and over again. And while we have a national discussion about guns here and new gun laws, and that discussion is going to rage for another 30 or 40 years, we're not even enforcing the laws that we have on the books right now. We should be throwing the book at these criminals, making sure we're seeking the maximum on those who shoot people in our community, who rob people in our community by gunpoint. We need to be using the tools that we have in the toolbox now, throw the book at these criminals, and we can actually see a decrease in violent crime in our major cities instead of seeing it increase. Thank you so much for the time.
Right. You're so right.
That's Joe Gamaldi, Gamaldi.
John McNesby, President, Fraternal Order Police, Lodge Number 5 in Philadelphia. And just this morning, we've had a total of 1,352 people shot in the city of Philadelphia. 108 of those were children. Children. I'm talking small children. We had one individual who was out on a sweetheart deal from our district attorney that We had a 2-year-old that was shot and killed. One male was directly responsible or involved in the 2-year-old shooting, and also the shooting of the mother and a repairman who was at the house, as well as an 11-month-old the day or two prior. So this is a common theme in the city regarding this district attorney. We need help. We have a 45% reduction in jails. We have people that are no longer victims in the city of Philadelphia. There's only one advocate for the defendant, and that's our district attorney. He turned it into both ends. So the victims have no voice. We need to return the victims who lost loved ones in the city of Philadelphia. Let's get them back involved. Let's let them be heard. The only thing they're hearing is sweetheart deals after they're done from the news media. So we need help in Philadelphia. We called on President Trump, and we want to thank him for letting us come here today and hear from both all the organizations as well as the Department of Justice. We thank them. We thank the U.S. Attorney of Philadelphia for lending us a hand in fighting this. But we need to draw attention to this so that we get the help. Thank you.
You're going to take questions afterwards, or
Yeah. Keith Farrell, I'm the president of Capital City Lodge number 9 in Columbus, Ohio. We applaud President Trump for having us here today. And it's a really simple message. The police are doing their jobs. The men and the women that put on the badge every day and go out and lock people up to protect every single person in this country are doing their jobs. And it is not okay with us that anyone is a victim of violent crime in this country. Certainly not in Columbus, Ohio, or in Franklin County, where the officers serve under me there. And we applaud the president for taking the initiative to say that, to come out. It doesn't matter where you live in this country. If you're rich, poor, black, white, it doesn't matter. It's not okay for you to be a victim in this country with the police. We do not like it, and we do not accept it. And we appreciate Mr. Trump taking the time to make that an issue to address.
Frederick Frazier, Dallas, Texas, F-R-A-Z-I-E-R, representing the lodge there in Dallas. We have the same situation. All of us have the same situation. We're watching rogue DAs do nothing. They got elected, and they got elected to put nonviolent criminals in jail. That's not going to work anymore. The president has taken initiative. He's doing the job that we need help, giving us the backing to say enough is enough. We need these criminals prosecuted. These aren't habitual criminals that are using drugs and little petty crimes. These are hardened criminals that are doing all the dirt in our cities that are causing all the crime. We're 193 murders in Dallas, Texas. That's the highest since 2007, when our crime rate was the highest in the nation. We're going backwards because the same individuals are committing the same crimes. We need help. This administration's help. We're very thankful for the president. We're very thankful for Pat Yo's leadership and the Fraternal Order of Police. And we'll do questions right after this is over with.
Well, you hear the same story from every major city across the city. You've got activist DAs who are ignoring their duty. They're not doing their jobs that they were elected to do. They're there to put criminals behind bars to make sure that our communities are safer and stronger places. And our law enforcement officers are doing a very difficult and very hard job every single day, and they're doing it very successfully. We are apprehending criminals, we're taking them off the streets, and unfortunately there's a revolving door in our broken criminal justice system that's returning them right back to terrorize the very communities we exist to protect. And it's time for somebody to stand up and make a difference in that realm. We certainly thank the president for his support and listening to our concerns, and we hope that our cities back home will support and make sure that we are taking all these criminals off the streets so that they cannot continue to terrorize the communities that we serve, so we can bring justice and safety back into those great places that we work in. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Graham. I'm the president of the Chicago FOP, Lodge number 7. We have a prosecutor in Chicago who not only fails to prosecute people, has changed the policy on lowering bond or no bonds, with having the criminals directly go back out onto the street to commit more crimes immediately.
And that ain't
We
right.
need to make sure that criminals stay in jail. The laws don't mean anything if they're not enforced.
Right.
We have to make sure that if you're going to commit a crime, you are held accountable for it.
That's right.
And in Chicago, they're not doing that. And we want to have a change with the prosecutor to make sure she is going to uphold the law and the office that she's asked to fulfill her duties since she's been the prosecutor, which he hasn't done. Thank you.
About time we put a stop to this mess.
Are you guys united when it comes to when the police are criminals? When the police have engaged in criminal activity?
We need to get out and protest on this and hammer the
I
ground.
think that there's a message here, and that message is a mismessage. In that, please recognize that every one of us, every one of our officers, everyone we represent, is not just the officers who are police in our communities. We live in these communities. They are our communities. We send our kids to schools in those communities. So we're very much invested in the protection of our communities. And I think we're better trained and better equipped than we've ever been before. And we do a very efficient job of taking criminals off the street. And that's exactly what we're doing, only to have them put back on the streets. And this is creating an elevation of more and more crime.
That's right.
Police actually are brutalized. And there's been that, you've heard that criticism. I'm not anyway. But are you willing to say, listen, we're taking a stand even if the criminal party?
Look, I'll make it very clear. I'll make it very clear, and this is the message you gave to the president. These are changing times in our world, and we need to be part of those changes. And we are willing, and very much willing, to sit at the table with anyone who wants to have a meaningful discussion about the improvement of our criminal justice system in this country. But it has to be one where we have a dialogue back and forth. No one knows more about the police in our communities than the men and women who are dedicated to go to work every single day and put their lives on the line in order to protect their communities. So we need to be part of this discussion, and we want to be part of this discussion. We want safer communities because we all have a vested interest in it.
If you see a crime, report a crime. Don't be hiding. Don't be saying, I don't want to get involved, because your involvement is what changes the laws to do what needs to be done to save innocent people.
The first part, you asked about the active shooter situation. And we know it's an active situation, and it's being addressed. I know the president is very much aware of the situation and is following it, and really not in a position to be able to answer that. Our hearts, go out, and prayers go out to the families involved. The second part of that is I think our step is our request is simple. We have there are a number of laws on the books that are simply being ignored. So we recognize that there are prosecutors around this country that are either unwilling or incapable of affecting some of this, enacting some of this, the prosecution. And we've asked the federal government to step in where they have jurisdiction in these violent gun cases. And let's go ahead and enforce the laws that are on the books now that are being totally ignored. We have to stop. There's a large percentage of the crimes that are occurring are happening by a very small percentage of people. And that small percentage of people getting put back on the street so they can further victimize. This is not helping our communities.
Right.
It's not making our jobs any safer. And I just don't see how anyone wins in this. We need to recognize that we need to stop this cycle of violence that seems to be escalating. And it has to start somewhere. We ask the president's help in order to help us take some of these people off the streets.
And it starts with the district attorneys and the judges.
You asked a very good question. If I can, I'm going to ask Rick if he would come up, Rick Schneider, come up and talk about some of the initiatives that we're doing in order to build those relationships in the communities. Because we're very much vested in changing this. Rick.
Yeah, Rick Snyder, SNYDER, President of the Indianapolis Fraternal Order of Police. To the question about the concerns of the community, it's an absolute concern for us as well. What we have said in Indianapolis is that all the different sides of these discussions, when we set our differences aside and think bigger about the challenges that we face, we can actually start to tackle all of these issues. But an overwhelming issue that we're seeing throughout the cities in our country is this broken system of catch and release criminal justice, where we're putting people with prior convictions for violence and bad acts right back out onto the street where they are re-victimizing our community.
Yep.
In Indianapolis, 3 out of every 4 murder victims in our city are African-American males. That should be a concern to all of us,
Amen.
how overrepresented that is. And it's when our citizens and our officers sit down at a table and talk about these things that we can start to address them. But in the meantime, it doesn't matter how many people we arrest. It doesn't matter how many talks that we have. If we are allowing criminals that are victimizing our communities right back out onto the streets,
Yep.
we will never make any progress.
That's
So
right.
that's a huge issue that we're doing. We're also tackling the issue of better connecting our faith-based community to our officers, our actual beat officers in the community. President Trump's administration just allocated a $1 million grant for what's called the One Cop Project that will bring technology to bear to connect members of faith congregations and the community with their beat officers that are working their neighborhoods.
Can you talk about prioritizing prosecution? Because one of the pushbacks against your argument is the fact that there's not enough prison space to be prosecuted.
These cops need to be doing something too. That they're just letting this stuff go by.
On the higher end, and leave some of the other ones to let them go.
We have fully supported different aspects of criminal justice reform. The National FOP was one of the leading proponents to stand with President Trump to initiate the First Step Act, which was a huge step forward on that. But what we have said is there is criminal justice reform, but there's also a difference between that and where our local prosecutors and judges are decriminalizing violent acts.
Yep.
We're decriminalizing the criminals at the same time we're depolicing the police. That is a recipe for disaster, and we're seeing it in our major urban environments in our country.
Yep.
Okay.
Time to
Thank
take
you
a
very much.
stand. Time to take a stand. You heard that. Your cops are arresting innocent people and letting the violent ones go by. Your DAs and your judges are slapping the criminals on the hand and turning them loose for them to redo their crime all over again so they can come back. It's a it's just a kickback paddywhack. You know, I'll just keep turning you loose and you keep coming in here and I'll keep getting paid, you know, for every time you come in here. That's crazy. This is why our jail systems are so full. Because the non-violent ones are in jail and the violent ones are running free. We don't need law or gun enforcement. We need law enforcement. Your district attorneys, your DAs, your judges. I know DAs is the same as district attorneys, but still, that's, you know what I'm trying to say. But we need to stand up on this, guys. We really need to stand tall, make your voices heard, and not just attack the gun laws, but attack the people that's not enforcing the criminals. Okay? That's where everything lies at. We get to the top of the building and we can hammer our way down to get these people taken out of office, off the bench, and get people in there to do what needs to be done. You know, I always say you do a crime, you pay the crime. You know, so if you don't like what I got to say, that's on you. You don't mind people getting killed and your brothers and your sisters and your mothers and your brothers and all that, hey, that's on you. But this has got to come to an end somewhere. It's been going on too long, and it's time to change the law. My take on this, and I hope you make this go viral one way or another. Don't worry about the picture not being there, you know, or something being seen. Yes, it's a blacked out video because that's the way I wanted it to be. It's not about how the video was taken. It's about the content in the video. And I'm over and out.